And hello everybody, Professor Andy Molnar here with you with Tech515. We're going to start out in this class. It's Technology 515. Let's jump right into technology, man. It's everywhere, wireless. Yes, it is. It's exciting, I agree. But one of the points to this course is to say, someday you, in your own company, I hope, or with in a corporation, will apply technology that transforms in your world. And one of my points would be, there are some basic concepts that you need to understand that apply to technology that transforms, whether it's today or whether it's 100 years ago. Concepts about strategy, about profitability, about competitive advantage remain, and you have to have a good understanding of that in order to be a success in any technology that transforms. This week we are going to, one of the last lectures is on the Google digital transformation. So we jump right into the modern world. Next week we're going to go back 120 years and look at the Hoover Company. So for now, this week, we're going to start off with strategic management, right? So chapter 1 of the literature, it defines the concept of strategy, and it describes the many facets that go into strategy. And the chapter explains what is meant by a competitive advantage. It discusses the relationships between a company's strategy and its own business model. And it introduces us to the competitive strategies that give any company an advantage over their rivals, right? How do we attract new customers? How do we have earnings above average profits? And so we're going to look at these winning strategies and what sets them apart from others. By the end, we should have a clear idea of why the tasks of crafting and executing a strategy are core management functions, and why excellent execution of that makes a technology that transforms a reality and something you can grow with. These are the learning objectives for the lesson today. Okay, so what is a strategy? Now, normally companies have a wide degree of strategic freedom in choosing the hows of a strategy. How to create products or services that attract and please customers, how to position the company in its industry, right? Et cetera, as the slide indicates. So strategy should involve the hows, and how deep you go is dependent upon the company and the degree to which you want to take it. So the core concept here is the company's strategy. Among all the things that a manager is going to do in life, nothing is going to affect the ultimate success or failure more fundamentally than how well it manages the team in respect to the strategic direction, developing the competitive advantage, and moving the business in a direction that internally produces good day-to-day execution and operational excellence. It all starts with the strategy at the top. It's one reason in project management, one of the first things we talk about is how your project ties to corporate strategy. You have this project, and in the middle, the company perceives a gap, and your project is trying to fill it, for example. So this slide demonstrates what to look for in identifying the substance of a great corporate overall strategy, right? These are visible actions that are taken that are going to signal what strategy the company is pursuing, right? For example, you could look at management's decisions, what sets you apart from your rivals, can you define yourself, your competitive edge, etc. Now, a firm's business model, I mentioned, was tied to the strategy. The firm's business model is going to set forth the logic of how its strategy will create this value for the customers. While at the same time, it's going to generate revenues, we talked about profitability, sufficient to cover any costs and also to realize a profit. In a small business, a profit is normally about maybe 10-12% I think is reasonable, though most would like to see 50%. Now, the business model is going to be management's plan then for delivering on this value-added product, this technology that can transforms, and getting it out to the customers in a manner that will generate those revenues that we just talked about. Now, the two elements of a company's business are, one, the customer value proposition, right, is going to lay out the company's approach to satisfying the buyer. What does the buyer want? What does the buyer need? And is it going to be at a price that the customer considers good value, right? This one thing I like about agile management is that it has a theme which is delight the customer. And it very much is applying that aspect in any model that you use. Now, the profit formula is another one. The profit formula is going to describe the company's approach to determining a cost structure that will allow for the acceptable profits, right? You can't go broke doing this, or your technology will no longer transform, okay? So this is a good graph from the book itself. The table just basically presents the comparison of major competitors in the broadcast radio markets, for example, Pandora, Sirius, XM, etc., over-the-air radio. And so the competitors' customer value proposition is affected by the product price, and that's going to impact your profit formula. So this is just meant to give you at a high level what values in turn will affect and are affected by the cost per unit structure that you're driving at in whatever technology that you're implementing to perform. Now, so strategy in the quest for sustainable competitive advantage. Sustainable competitive advantage is very difficult. When you produce a competitive advantage, it is usually attacked, copied, mirrored, imitated, etc. Very difficult to do, so you want to be careful. And so this is an important slide about the sustainable competitive advantage. So if you're looking for the sustainable competitive advantage, these are the 5 most frequently used strategic approaches to setting a company apart from its rivals and achieving that sustainable competitive advantage. So the definitions are there, but a low-cost provider, you could take an approach of a broad differentiation strategy, a focused low-cost strategy, a focused differentiation strategy, or a low-cost provider strategy as well. Okay, the definitions are there and included on the slide and in the readings yourself. So the core concept is this, then, I would offer, that the heart and soul of any strategy is the actions and moves in the marketplace that the managers are trying to improve. How do we get the company's financial performance above the rest? How do we strengthen the long-term competitive position? These are the questions we're asking. And then how do we use these to leverage a gain over our rivals in terms of competitive advantage? But sustainability is a relative term, right? Some advantages are going to last much longer than others. And regardless of how sustainable your competitive advantage is, it may appear at a given point in time that conditions are changing. So even a substantial competitive advantage over your rivals may crumble in the face of drastic shifts in any marketplace. So even with your technology that transforms, you'd want to keep an eye on that. Now, Starbucks is focused, as an example, on enhancing the customer experience in its stores. And you sense that every time you walk in there, right? And so among all the things the managers do, nothing affects a company's ultimate success or failure more fundamentally than how well the management team charts the company's direction, develops this sort of a effective strategic move and business approaches. And Starbucks does that very well. And their strategy then translates down to from the corporate level down to the actual stores themselves, which is the ultimate goal. That's tying in the corporate level with management applying this strategy throughout. So the importance of capabilities in building and sustaining a competitive advantage is the next topic that the book covers. So first-rate capabilities and skills are essential in this pursuit of a competitive advantage that is going to lead to your strategic success. This is why we want to retain people that are quality personnel, right? Firms that have capabilities that are strong and well-matched, that bring value to the customer, that are cost-effective, are things that we want to take advantage of and retain. Things that are costly or difficult for the competitors to acquire or imitate, those are the things that are long-term sustainable. So there's two concepts here. You could create initially a sustainable advantage by having your technology that transforms and paying people really well, a couple of key people, to develop it. But long-term, it is more advantageous to create a competitive advantage by creating things that are difficult for competitors to acquire or to imitate. And some of that is the manpower that works for you, the men and women that are making your success possible. And so strategy is going to evolve over time. I already mentioned the marketplace conditions, but the concept is that changing conditions are ongoing, and management is constantly pursuing efforts to improve strategy, or you will not realize and you will be overcome. You will lose your competitive advantage and profitability along the way. Maybe in a supply chain approach, for example, is just one way that can happen, right? And so how many saw the supply chain issues of 2022 coming on? But those that did got ahead of it and were able to modify their strategy. So be aware of that. Now, on this slide, there are two elements that form to combine a company's realized strategy, the strategy that's really implementable, right? And so in this figure, a company's strategy is really a blend of these proactive initiatives and reactive adjustments. We just talk about how strategy changes over time. And this illustrates the elements of strategy that become the realized strategy. It's a combination of these two. The strategy elements that prove unsuccessful are the ones that you have to abandon, and you need to be ready to replace them with a new approach, right? I look at McDonald's. McDonald's was losing to Starbucks, and you know what? They invested $1 million per store for a fancy coffee cappuccino machine maker and closed that gap and maintained a competitive advantage in their own industry too, while going after other rivals. And so we talk then about this realized strategy. So a firm's deliberate strategy has this proactive strategy elements, and some are planned and others then are realized as planned later. It becomes emergent, and other things are going to happen in the marketplace that are going to impact that strategy along the way. So as the world evolves around us, companies have to evolve their strategy to maintain that competitive advantage, right? And so the three tests of a winning strategy really look like this. Is it a strategic fit? Do I have a competitive advantage? And what about performance, right? So the fit test is how well the strategy fits the current company's situation, right? So to qualify it as a winner, you have to be competitive, take advantage of market opportunities, that sort of thing. The performance test is the strategy producing good company performance. You should have metrics that you are low margins, measuring your